We have some massive news that is coming out right now as some of the implementation of how the U.S. military is looking to possibly screen applicants for what has been known as extremism. As this hot topic has been a case of debate since January, essentially, they have been more proactive since the stand down, and looks like there is further guidance that's coming down the pipeline. To be fair, this has been brought to my attention by this article over at The Intercept, and we're going to review this plus some resources as well, and I'll link those down below so you can read this yourself in its entirety. But if you guys like what we do here, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff, because we're on the road to 100K, and we're almost there. We're almost at 91,000 right now. We'd appreciate it. Thank you. The title of this article says, Pentagon plans to monitor social media of military personnel for extremist content. Now, obviously, that does come under scrutiny already. If you post anything, there are social media guidelines that are already out there, but there's more to this. Ken Klippenstein says an extremism steering committee led by Bishop Garrison, a senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense, is currently designing the social media screening pilot program, which will continuously monitor military personnel for concerning behaviors, according to a Pentagon briefing in late March. Although in the past the military has balked at surveilling service members for extremist political views due to the First Amendment protections, the pilot program will rely on a private surveillance firm in order to circumvent First Amendment restrictions on government monitoring, according to senior Pentagon official. That when you look at this, I have to tell you that how is this legally going to act out? Because if you're not actively surveillancing people, but you're contracting someone else out to do this, that could be a little bit of a slippery slope, if you will. But in the source article here, I haven't seen anything. It looks like they've attended a brief or seen a brief where these questions have been answered previously, but this is, again, secondhand information, so let's go on. So the Senate Armed Services Committee made a response later on after this article was posted, because it looks like nobody knew what was actually going on from this memorandum. It looks like from the Secretary of Defense, but it says, the committee understands that the Department of Defense is exploring a means of implementing social media screening in conjunction with background investigations. We anticipate that any social media screening would be intended only as an additional means of vetting cleared individuals or those seeking to obtain a security clearance, not as a tool for ongoing surveillance of all men and women in uniform. That said, Secretary Austin has been clear about his intentions to understand to what extent extremism exists in the force and its effects on good order and discipline. We look forward to hearing the results of the stand down and the department's plan to move forward. So they're saying this is probably the intent, but it's not guaranteed. So, as you creak open this door, and there's been criticisms with Patriot Act, things like that, of people being able to have surveillance, and talking about NSA, that's been a big blown up thing as well. But being military, or joining the military, you're already under scrutiny for multiple things. One, to include your medical background, your legal background already. If you had tattoos, it might be linked to one of these groups. Now you're talking about having this algorithm go through and filter people out. And I can only say, imagine you wanted to join the military. Now they're going to screen your social media, say that it runs through, you have to label everything down. What's going to end up happening is they say, hey, Johnny, you can't join because we found something on your social media. Bam. Doesn't even matter if you met every single thing else. That's what I'm reading from this, and that's what I find quite interesting as we go down this slippery slope. Also, on top of that, we're talking about so much information. There's thousands upon thousands of people that apply every single year, with how many different Facebook posts, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever else. Like, we're talking millions of different posts at this point, and then asking ourselves how much manpower is going to be required to then manually filter through some of these as well that may be in the algorithm's gray area, which might need further review. So I don't know where this is going, but please, if you have your own thoughts on this, please let me know down below. But I'm trying to look at both sides of the coin here. It says incorporating machine learning and natural language processing into social media screening platforms, as well as ensure training addresses issues raised by commanders and supervisors on gray areas such as reading, following, and liking extreme material and content in social media forums and platforms. So like I said, it's not exactly even what you're posting. It's about what you're following. Say you started your Facebook back in 2009 like I did, and I followed something that might be linked to something now. I mean, I don't think many people are going to follow the strict guidance of or scrutiny of what the DoD might consider. So I would say my advice to somebody that's looking to join right now or has considerations before this is rolled out or before you apply, I would say start screening your social media to start saying, will I want an employer to look at this? And I think this is, becoming the new age of where we're at, essentially where people are going to just look on social media and see what you're all about, essentially, because it should be a reflection of who you really are. And they do have a little bit of criticism here talking about why this is not a good idea from a retired FBI agent, which he says, using keywords to monitor social media isn't just an unnecessary privacy invasion, it is a flawed strategy that will ensure it is short-lived. He then goes on to say, rather than relying on artificial intelligence or algorithms, German says it would be more constructive to simply improve the whistleblower systems so that reports of this misconduct are taken seriously, which I will be honest, we have systems that I would say are there in place already. People could report these things, and I don't know how they could be better. I mean, you look at the ability to contact NCIS, Navy Criminal Investigative Services, or CID, or whatever body that you are able to contact to report these tips and things to. I mean, I find it quite interesting that we're talking about this in the context that we need to beef this up. Would this mean having people that are within the unit that are also, frontline members, I guess, that you could report this to? I would assume most people would want to be anonymous if they are reporting this. So I would find that kind of interesting if they'd want to expand upon that. I don't think that would be really beneficial other than just adding more layers to this onion of maybe buffers, if you would call them that. But let's get to the source material here. So under the criticism that's been out there, it looks like this memorandum that was released by the DoD says that their immediate actions are going to include reviewing and updating the DoD instruction and the definition of extremism. So obviously, I think that's a good idea. I think that has left ambiguity to the situation, and I think this will create better guidance for people that are in the military as well. The next one says update service member transition checklist. Service member transition checklist for individuals separating or retiring from the military that include training on potential targeting of service members by extremist groups and work with other federal departments and agencies to create a mechanism by which veterans have the opportunity to report any potential contact with extreme groups should they choose to do so. So obviously, I will say what the Department of Defense has looked at is that these groups can target people that are veterans because they do have a skill set which they feel could be beneficial to them and maybe lead these people into a belief or idea of their group or a sense of belonging as well. So I don't think people are going to really voice out that they've been reached out to by these groups. I don't think that's going to be the thing because I think these groups are smart enough to know or have at least a little understanding of people that might be interested in joining these groups, and putting that pressure on these groups might put these people to fester in more proxy Finsta accounts or fake profiles and all these other things where I think it's going to be harder to catch them. If anything, they are going to be playing catch up to these types of people and how smart they are. But now, another thing they want to do is review and standardization of screening questionnaires to gather actionable information in the short term to ensure that the only best qualified recruits are selected for services. Everybody wants the best qualified recruits. We all understand that. But it says here that if you were to lie about that, that'd be an issue because they say to clarify that any demonstrably false answers provided in response could form the basis for punitive action for fraudulent enlistment. So now I want to translate an idea to you guys. Look at it this way. Your little Johnny that's joined the military, they do their preemptive checks. They're like, he's okay. We're going to run through for security checks, right? You go to boot camp. You go there and they're like, hey, Johnny, we've actually checked your social media. We saw that you liked X or Y. You posted X, Y, or Z. And now we're going to bust you down for the military under fraudulent enlistment. I will say I haven't seen anyone for fraudulent enlistment be kicked out. That's my personal anecdotal. I'm sure people have, but just putting it out there, like think about how this can also come across on both sides. The last action here is to commission an extremism study. It says the department will commission a study on the behavior within our total force, include gathering greater fidelity on the scope of the problem. I think we understand the scope. I don't think we're going to get anything out of this research project and study the service for these types of things. I'm not saying I don't want to have great quality people that obviously have good morals and ethics that follow the U.S. military and what we stand for. What I do mean, though, is I don't think this is going to give us new information, in my opinion. That's me looking at it because I think it's pretty understandable without having a study done. And I know the criticism that's come from this, especially from the article too, is like this is a waste of money. So I could see both sides of this, but looking at it, if anything, we'll reaffirm it, we'll move on, and then call it a day. Now, there are some lines of effort that they want to go on to, and one of those is looking at the military justice and policy. And with that comes the idea of, does the Uniform Code of Military Justice meet the requirements to ensure that we hold good order and discipline? If you guys don't remember, I made a video only several days ago about the issues over at DC when we were talking about that Marine major that was caught on video. And so now we're looking at it is the UCMJ empowered enough and have enough articles that they could go off of to truly ensure that they're able to enforce this. But that's something to consider. We'll see what happens as this moves forward. Line of effort 2, support and oversight insider threat program, like they talked about before, bulking this up, making it bigger. Okay, moving on. Line of effort 3, screening capability. Now it says screen publicly available information in accessions and continuous vetting for national security positions. So looking at this, you have your direct accessions straight to military service as you apply for your security clearance. So they're looking at that. Then it says continuous vetting for national security positions. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does it mean top secret clearance? Does that mean secret clearance? How are we going to look at that? What is the threshold? That way they get good quality information. Who's really at risk of maybe leaking information they shouldn't have? And it says public access. So I'm like, does this mean just like what I can search on public access? Or I don't know how freedom of information goes as far as like if a security screening, if you sign away saying I will allow you to go into private information too, that would be another thing that I'd be like, man, you could open a lot of can of worms legally here that I'm very interested to see how this plays out. But it says the line of effort is to ensure that commanders are going to be aware of gray areas and training and things like that, for material, liking it, things like that. So I will let you guys know that this is just kind of what's coming up. I don't really have a solid stance other than this is very slippery, and we don't have any definitives yet. We don't have any idea as far as what the actual black and white is going to say. I will say, looking at this, they have their work cut out for them, because to decipher through all of this without making it ambiguous is going to be difficult, and also at the same time empowering the command to take this action and also these entities to screen for this stuff. So it's obviously going to create a lot more work. But I'd like to know what you guys think about this process, and as you hear about this, and obviously the scrutiny that we're going to see is about First Amendment and things like that. Because I already know that we're going to get a lot of people on the side of Minority Report, kind of like no one's done any crimes yet. How can you get them in trouble for that? Please let us know down in the comments below, because I know that's where the scrutiny in this article is kind of coming from in their stance. But I'd like to know what you guys think. But as always, if you guys do support the channel over here, we do have a Patreon link down below, which you can always support over there for some special perks and benefits. Also here on YouTube, a membership button below this video, also on the main channel page as well. But as always, if you guys have questions about this or anything else, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
I pick it up right where I left off. They're banging the drums and they point to me.